Welcome to There's a Lesson in Here Somewhere. Conversations with interesting people with fascinating stories to tell and from which we can draw important lessons. Here are your hosts, Jamie Serino and Peter Carucci.
Hello and welcome to There's a Lesson in Here Somewhere. I'm Jamie Serino.
And I'm Peter Carucci.
And we're here today with Susan Capel, a licensed registered certified art psychotherapist, a licensed creative arts therapist, a board certified group psychotherapist, a certified mental health nutrition clinical specialist, a certified clinical anxiety treatment professional, and an overall wonderful person. And so we're so happy to have her here. She has knowledge across so many areas of mental health, including EMDR and DBT and CBT. And she works with a wide range of people and groups. And so we're happy to welcome Susan here today. Susan, welcome. And we're glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Susan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, as you mentioned, I am a art therapist and I have a private practice on Long Island. And throughout my 30 years of practice, I've worked with a variety of populations, and I have worked with hospitals and institutions. I am affiliated with universities, and I work with students as a supervisor. And I guess throughout all of my years, populations have really spanned the gamut from eating disorder patients, medically ill children. I've done a tremendous amount of grief work. I've worked inpatient psychiatric, outpatient psychiatric with drug addiction, you name it. I think I've kind of gone through a lot of different populations.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And whenever we've been speaking with you, there's so much to dive into with all the different things you've experienced. But we kept coming back to art therapy, and so we decided, well, let's dive into that. So why don't you just start telling us a little bit about what interested you in art therapy to begin with?
Well, there was one other thing I think that throughout my entire career, I've been thinking about. I always wanted to spread the power of how this really works. I dove into art therapy. I was a psychology major and I loved art, and I took it as a minor. And somebody mentioned this field to me. I was like, oh my God, that's my thing. Because I wanted to. And so I found when I went to graduate school that I found my niche, I found my people. And I also found this field that I had been sort of using my whole life because I love to be creative, and I always loved how it made me feel after I was creative, or if I could give a gift because I was creating something, or if I was sad, I might be creating something. So for me, I believe that I was also using art as my own therapy along the way. And once I realized that there was this field and how it worked, every time I was with somebody, it really worked. And I would gain insight, and I had this ability to help them to help themselves. And it was so powerful that I truly felt like, hey, we've got to get everybody on board with this. And then I realized, hey, people don't know about creative arts therapies. We do talk therapy, right? Maybe they do now, but 30 years ago they didn't. And it's been a slow journey to get to the point where people are understanding that there are all these different alternative therapies, that we can be mindful, that we can use our brains to really help us more than we ever imagined.
Yeah.
It's so exciting every time we talk to you because we learn so much. And this is called There's a Lesson in Here Somewhere for that reason. And how does art therapy work? How does it work?
Well, I kind of think about art therapy as therapy on steroids because we really do also utilize the verbal therapy. We talk, and creative arts therapists are not just they use art, they use music, they use drama, they use play. The license in New York State in particular encompasses other modalities. So, we can use all these different pieces to help people. How does it work? Kind of like regular therapy. I mean, you can use it art as therapy, and then there's art psychotherapy, where we're using it to clients to gain insight about themselves, and then the therapist can gain insight about that client, and then we can help them on their journey.
So, how do you feel that art therapy specifically has gained momentum and is now more accepted and more used? How did that happen? From 30 years ago, it wasn't even like thought of, and now it's a proven um,
Yeah,
therapy.
it's a great question. And I really believe that in our society has changed a little bit. So if we look at how people judge therapy in general, and being more accepting of taking care of ourselves, that self-care is not selfish, that we have to spend time, and especially even after the pandemic, I do think that everything gained more and more steam about our own mental health, because people were really experiencing mass trauma. On everybody was going through it. So how do you navigate that? How do you take care of yourself? And people were searching for pieces of that. But I mean, if we look at over the 30 years, it also became evidence-based, where therapists were doing research and proving how we were utilizing the therapeutic tools. And it even started on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Judy Rubin was on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the 70s. That was the beginning. That was getting it out to the public. And it just took off momentum from there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, Judy Rubin is like one of these mothers of art therapy, and there are many of them. I just happen to know her personally as well, and I just feel that she was on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So when do you feel like you would say, all right, art therapy is the right thing to use here? And I do like what you said earlier, that you're still doing talk therapy, and you're kind of just now incorporating another kind of element. But in terms of like saying, all right, this person needs talk therapy, like needs CBT, right? Or some form of therapy, talk therapy. When would you say, you know what, I think art therapy is what this person really needs?
It's a great question again. I feel that art therapy can fit into anybody's life that, is interested in finding it, and maybe not. Maybe you don't even know that you want to use a creative outlet. Maybe journaling can be looked at, maybe whatever it is, and it could be art journaling. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be using words in that journal. And art therapy can be used when people are stuck. It's really whenever you need therapy. There is no definition of it. Um, I also believe that there is a stigma to, it's not that you're going to walk in a room and I'm going to hand you a crayon. Although, when was the last time you did have a
Yeah.
crayon? What type of feeling and what might that evoke
Yeah.
I was in kindergarten? And we can then work with maybe a feeling that came up from you with what was your kindergarten experience like? So not only the materials can be impactful with how it affects the therapeutic relationship and what we're doing, there's just so many different angles that you can use the art. You can use it as a soothing tool, maybe even the repetitiveness of something. It that can be a tool to help calm you. Doodling, we have mindfulness doodling. All of those pieces can be utilized. And when you're in therapy with an art therapist, not only will she be loading, or any therapist might be loading you up. When you work with a therapist, you are gaining coping skills.
Mm.
You are, working towards your goals. So you would have all the same goals, but you also might be filling a tool belt with creative outlets or things that work for you.
Yeah. It's
I
cool.
mean, art therapy is used, let's say, think about it, it's used with veterans. Now, a veteran, a man, or a woman who is out there in the field, they are, they come back. Sometimes they have a lot of trauma that they've had to experience. And we work with veterans, and we might do mask making. And once they start using the materials and experiencing what it is that's happening and how they can use the therapy to help them get through their own trauma, that's the tool. That's how
Yeah, I mean, I like also, biologically, it's bringing in another part of your brain and it's taking information and passing it through. And that's what a lot of people say about like journaling. You're taking your thoughts and you're sort of forcing them now into being put into written form. And so that's supposed to help, bounce information back and forth throughout your brain. And I think art therapy is doing that a little bit. And so when you're talking about working through a trauma, especially maybe you might have trouble finding the words for it, right? But you can work through it using art therapy. Can you talk a little bit about that, like working with people that have trauma and using art therapy for that?
Absolutely. Well, I found that when you're dealing with trauma, it is such a powerful tool, the art. We've created, I collaborated with an organization to create a journal called Hope, Love, and Courage that actually provides therapy, or is a workbook that utilizes the creative um, directives to help children, families, caregivers, frontline workers, anybody who's going through trauma. So we use some of the tools, and you can use some of the activities in that book to help you navigate trauma. Um, Also finding grounding. So for example, if I am working with somebody who has experienced trauma, maybe one of the first things that I might do is have them envision what a safe space might look like. And I might have them think about what that, if we do, maybe we'll do an art piece about it. Maybe they'll just be thinking about it while they're creating that safe space. Maybe they're creating an image of that safe space. And as they do that, maybe we could work on trauma about something else later on, but I always have that safe space that they've now created. I have a picture of it and we can go back and we can use it. We can think about how it might have smelled there, what it might have looked like, whatever it is, we can create this base and help people to navigate when they're going through trauma. So now I have this visual aid to help me with all the other verbal therapies that we're going to talk therapy and all the other things that we're going to do in
And
therapy.
Susan,
So,
I'm loving this because, like, even what Jamie was asking before about, essentially it's a concrete physical example of what's going on in here, and now there's a work of art or tactile thing they did that now as a therapist you can bring it back and you can say, hey, well, like a year later you can say, remember when you did this, that safe space. I love that. I mean, that alone signals to me that there's such a power in a concretizing kind of thought in that way through art. I think that's great. I'm wondering, and you don't have to, because I know some of this might be intense or depending on the level, but are there a couple examples of that and how you've met out some great success using that kind of thing?
sure. Well,
Would you be willing to share? If you
oh,
don't have to.
absolutely. I think that it's actually a great question because I want to share some of those things that I've done, worked with clients. One of the last things I recently did with some trauma victims. Oh, you know what? I'm going to actually skip. Let me tell you about the Alzheimer's patients first. I run a group for Alzheimer's patients and their caregivers. And one of the last groups that I did with them, I played music from The Wizard of Oz, and we created a yellow brick road. Each person had their own brick, and they created a brick with their caregiver. By using music that's old, it kind of sparked memories from whatever we could pull from, as well as we created this incredible yellow brick road and talked about the meaning of being on a path, and the metaphors that stayed within that session was so powerful. Plus, they have this gold brick to take home, this brick that we created to take home with them. And so the family or the caregiver can go back to their home, and we can use that to help build on their memory, to help build on an experience, to try to draw in from those memories, just so many different aspects of how that could work. That's
Nice.
just that's just with Alzheimer's patients. Grief work, I also work with a group of families who have lost a child, and honestly, the child could have been lost, even adult children. And so when I do that work, a lot of times we might make a memorial towards the person who is passed. And
Mm.
so we can use the art to create so many different things, whether it's a collage with their image, or if it's just represented by some type of something. And it gives, that was like the last thing that I did with grief work.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Do you ever work with people and they're like kind of resistant to it a little bit, and you have to just kind of like try to encourage them and try to get them into it? And how do you do that?
100% resistance is key. I mean, even if you're working with a teen, and I could be sitting in a room, let's just say I walk into a room with a bunch of 5 teens or 6 teens, and they don't want to be there. Their mother made them go because we we have a therapy group that we have to go to. Or even if, let's say, that, I don't know if that's always the case, but dealing with the resistance is, I have this extra tool because art can be enticing. Music, it can, maybe I'll put music on, we'll put them in the right mood, maybe, and also giving them control about picking the things that we need. So if I'm dealing with, let's say, resistance with kids, I might really use the art to help entice and gain that trust so that we can create a space and that we can communicate if I'm doing a group. um if I'm, I think you find resistant. And honestly, I never ever, if somebody doesn't want to be creative, that's fine. I find that the creativity is, we use it when I'm stuck in sessions. Gee, maybe we should, or maybe something to do in between sessions, then we bring it. What is it? Because the art really many times means, what does it mean to them? Not
Right.
about that red heart might mean one thing to you, and it might mean anger and something else to somebody else. And we've got to figure out how to decipher what that means to that person, and how you can look at that aspect of the therapy session, because it's never about the therapist, it's always about what's happening for the client.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, um, going back to the Hope, Love, Courage workbook, because I had the opportunity to see that, and that was, I don't know if you developed it for other organizations, but it was developed for, so World Care Center uses it, and one of the ways in which it uses it is with Ukrainian refugees, and that's how I saw it used, and it was really powerful, and I think it was really well done, because you draw on a few different modalities, right? You have them drawing pictures, you have them writing, then you have them talking, and there are one or two points where it does dive a little deep, but it stays, I think, surface enough to not, people are in this group to not, re-traumatize anybody. But I think by the end of it, then at the end there's a group art activity, right? So I just think it was wonderful. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and about maybe some of the sessions that you've run using the workbook?
The workbook is really a wonderful tool that we can use to share, to help anybody going through trauma. I believe so while I work did the workbook, so that for the war in Ukraine, and now we're actually going to transition it to, for firefighters families if they have
Right.
to leave and be deployed, and people are, their families are really separated, and it's a real sacrifice to have people, um you know separated throughout their,
Yeah.
separated. So we're going to use it for that as well. And I also, Lisa had originally started it for 9/11.
Right.
And for me, to be honest with you, my trauma work also started at 9/11, and understanding how to collaborate with other therapists. And really, I started crisis counseling centers across New York, and really got involved in being in the trauma work. And the trauma work is so powerful. And the Hope, Love, Courage book was designed to help children, help families affected by disasters and trauma. and help them to emotionally express themselves. We wanted them to gain coping skills. We wanted to build their resilience. And I truly believe that building resilience and giving people this extra tool belt before we go in and we have the trauma in our world, because we know it's going to be there. And for me, I continued that work when I was even hit with the mass gun violence that has come across the country. So then I for that, I did an art exchange with, so, if we can exchange art with have the high schools exchange art and send a message of hope and a resiliency. So that was one of those initiatives that you have to jump in. We can all do something. I think when mass trauma happens, we all feel like our hands are tied, but it's not. You can jump in, and trust me, I got connected through connected. I don't know how I ended up there, but if we open up our eyes to collaborate and share this extra tool, this powerful art therapy thing, and we share all of these pieces, we just become more resilient as a community as a whole, and then we can help each other, because we all know we're going to be touched with some other trauma at some point soon enough, and it's not going to we have to build our resiliency.
Yeah.
And the other part of it, just to go back to the Hope, Love, Courage journal, it's really teaching everybody to ask those open-ended questions so that you can find out who needs help. How much help do you need? Do you need to go, and get extra help? So all of those pieces are so important. And if we have these little tools, hey, maybe I'll try that journal. We just had this bad thing happen, and you look at one of those directives and you can use it. It will help you express yourself. It will help with self-reflection. It'll help you maybe become more aware of your own triggers. Whatever it is, you could create that safe space and then work from there. I don't know what you'll need, what everybody needs, but we certainly all could use a little bit of any of that, or learning how to breathe, because you don't know about the whatever numbers. So in that, I also love to give people. Well, for me, in my own private practice, with the clients that I work with, I have five things that you're supposed to walk around with on your tool belt at all times. And you get to pick whatever they are, whether it's breathing or maybe focusing on an object, getting a new mantra, just dealing with I have these, want everybody to kind of not have to go out there dealing with their anxiety if they have it, that they have this extra tool belt and then they can pick from it. And if those don't work, then we go back and we pick some other things to try from.
Yeah. Something you said in there too was really powerful. Like when these sort of, especially mass traumas happen, we feel like our hands are tied. And, I think there's a little bit of this like lack of control, like this thing happened and it's awful and there was no way I could have controlled it. I can't control it. And people, I think, do feel like their hands are tied. And then you made a couple of, suggestions about what to do. I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit more, because I think that would be great advice for people, because there will be something else, or even if it's, what they say, trauma with a small t, or if it's trauma with a capital T. And there is that element there of feeling like your hands are tied, or there's nothing I can do. There's no way I can help that person. Right. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I guess, sure. I mean, my take on it is, well, that person that I have no connection with them. I've never met them. I'm never going to meet them. But because I feel that I have this, it's like us helping the world, I guess. We should all, give a little bit. So what can you do? Whenever something happens, I guess I don't want to feel like my hands are tied. So I reach out to my community and I see how I can help. Can I run a arts festival? Can I, whatever it is that will bring people together, build their resiliency? I think getting the word out and knowing that you can change, and you can change how you feel by also the power of your choice. Your choice. You can do something. It's a choice to feel differently than you're feeling right now. If you don't feel good, you have a choice. How are you going to do that? If you need help, find a mentor, collaborate, whatever it is that you need. But anybody can do anything. You just have to take the steps, right?
Yeah.
One,
Yeah.
It's very inspiring for me. I want to now start painting. I don't know how to explain it. Just
Yeah.
hearing all that makes me realize it's okay to let it out. It's okay to like express myself. I'm strangely like really drawn to what you're saying. Like, wow, I can let my inner processes express themselves through art. I really literally want to start drawing again. This is great.
I
And
mean, listen, the other part of it is if you feel like that, why don't you just take your pen out right now if you're listening to the podcast and doodle? Do you
Yeah.
want to do a line that's fast? You want to do a line that's slow? How are you feeling? And I think part of it is, I hear musicians and they're saying, well, I don't, you're going to be judged if you put the music out there. It's the same way people are worried about putting it on the paper. It's in my head, so nobody sees it, but whatever it is. So, people are feeling judged. So if you do it just for yourself to get out, whatever it is could show up on the paper, whether it's a color or a shape or a mood or a feeling, get it out, see what comes onto the paper, see where it leads you.
yeah, and it's almost like I'm fixated and I'm almost obsessed with the idea that now there's a concrete physical product of that process. And I was an educator for many years, and I had a colleague, math teacher, let's just say, who was very anti any kind of product. This gentleman was more like, what's 4 plus 4? I'm calling a kid. 8, good. And I tried so hard to help this guy understand, like, maybe there's a product they can come up with. So this man became one of the best teachers, like, probably in the United States in a matter of a couple of years, because he embraced the fact that when you have, in this case, high school students come together to create a product, whether it's a work of art or even writing about how I came up with that. Like, for example, if I said to you, solve 2 plus 2, you'd just write 4 and move on. But he learned very simply asking them to write, how do you solve this equation, 2 plus 2? Now the entire process of your brain is involved, and there's a output piece, which is in this case just writing about the process, but the creative side of it like became, I think, something he was also very obsessed with. And he had them come up with these different projects with like a bird flying and drawing it out, and the kids and their creativity started to flourish just for like a triangle and the hypotenuse and things like that. I mean, I can see this working so well for so many populations. And I want to go back to something Jamie asked you, because it's interesting, because what I love is you're giving them agency and choice. Like it's one of the things in your tool belt, maybe someone has trauma with a capital T or lowercase t, and they're not willing to talk about it, not even willing to write about it, but you get them to paint something, whatever. The idea of resistance, is there a time where you've tried everything in your toolkit and honestly, I'm dying to know if there's an instance where nothing worked and then all of a sudden art therapy worked. Has that ever happened?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. We can't. I mean, look. I don't want to I don't want to define what worked, what didn't work. Did the person change? Did they get out of their, with the space that they were in? Did they do something that they, feel successful with? I do find that clients seem really genuinely like they're gaining speed in their lives and really fulfilling and feeling differently and changing how they feel. What's the goal? You just want to feel way you want to feel, right? We want to be able to do the things we want to do. It's small little goals. You don't have to make this mountain to get there. I mean, resistance is resistance. So it's going to be in it does come, but it's what somebody wants to do, right? If they want to get better, you have to do a little bit of the work. You try to make it enticing. Like if you could just see that on the other side of this mountain, it is so good over here. And whatever your why is, you know, I'm just a firm believer of finding the motive, helping someone find the motivation to help themselves, to help themselves. You
Have you
said
ever had,
something earlier. I
well, have
forgot.
you ever had the case where, and forgive me, I'm thinking about a friend of mine who kept saying he wanted to uh, help himself, but he was going to therapy and he refused entirely to do anything, anything at all what the therapist was trying to guide him through. And I mean, have you ever had a roadblock in your career that profound where you're like, this guy's not willing to change at all, or this girl's not willing to change at all? I mean, and has art therapy been the solution to that, or has it been? I mean, has there been a case where nothing worked and all of a sudden art therapy comes in? Now
I'm
all of a
sure.
sudden
I'm
you
sure
have
there
success.
has. I'm sure there has. I'm sure I've had clients where I do have clients who really swear by the process that we've gone through, that it worked for them. But I'm sure that it's going to work for something else is going to work. Eventually something works, or eventually it doesn't. And, I mean, I've worked inpatient with the sickest of the sick, and I can't say that art therapy is going to work for,
Oh,
it
yeah.
also depends on the person. It really depends on what they're going to do. So is it a super magical power? No, it's therapy, and it's helping people help and to feel differently. But all of the pieces have to come into play. Again, it's a choice. It's some of these feelings and emotions that you have to. If you want something, it's a choice. You choose. There's always two sides to something, and you can choose to, let them, and you go this way, and not. It's not a. It can be about control. You said something before about control.
Well, I could jump in with a Neil Peart quote from Rush. If you choose not to decide, you still made a choice. Yeah. So, one thing that comes to mind as you all were talking about product, and even Susan, when you were mentioning doodling, is that as we move into more of a digital world, right? What I love about art therapy is this non-digital experience, right? So I'm wondering what your thoughts are there, and they could be thoughts around this in general about where our society is moving, or it could be related to art therapy. But um, I doodle less because I find myself in meetings typing my notes instead of writing them down. So I actually doodle less, and I hadn't thought about that until this conversation. I'm like, what's the impact of less doodling on my life? And so in general, I'm more digital today than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And then I think about my kids and the time they spend in the digital world, and how we try to pull them out of that, and put them in the physical world to read an actual book or to color or paint, whatever. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that, just in general, with where our society is moving into a less physical world, less product creation world, and then impact on art therapy. I don't know, just kind of a vaguish, kind of broad question there for you.
It's a great question, and it's been brought up. If I think to say that we're not going to be digital art therapy, that's not possible either, because that is where the world is going. So there are all types of digital tools that art therapists are using across the board, from whiteboards that you
Yeah.
share and you can create together, to virtual therapy sessions, which we all do. Um, and so we are still in the digital world. The idea of being able to create, so it really can just be like, I'm creating by myself in my studio and nobody needs to see it, so you can really let yourself experience the art. But I don't know how much that's changed. I know when I'm taking notes in a meeting, I'm making art, because my notes are all doodles with my information in it. So I want to be creative all the time. So my notes are pretty, if I'm on the computer, sometimes I might print them out and color around them.
Okay.
So, I forgot what the question was.
Well, just this idea that we're, in a more digital world, a less physical world, and the physical creation of art, physical creation of things, you know, things that were thoughts that then become, like you both were
Mhm.
using the word sort of like a product. Just what any impact there is, and then what maybe you do in art therapy to try to bring them into a physical world. But you brought up an interesting thing that you could be doing digital art therapy as well. So that was kind of interesting to hear. So that was just, really just a sort of broad kind of question there.
And it's interesting. I've noticed I doodle less as well. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Even how I write I'm a songwriter, and even how I write them. I used to always use a pencil on a notebook, and I would draw, and it would be very creative. Just the creation of my song would be very creative. Now I find myself I'm typing it all, and
Yeah.
I have like a line where my word salads come in and brainstorming area is, and then I finalize it digitally. And I realized just in this conversation, I'm gonna write my next song on paper or marker, or maybe I'll take a crayon out. Seriously, I don't know,
Yeah.
and and allow that kind of expression to come out again. So
Yeah.
I never thought of that. Seriously, that's
I
great.
mean, you do forget that what it feels like to take, to pull the materials out. It really can be very fun, but you don't even, some people use found objects. It's, or collage, or you could just take a magazine and rip it up and create something. It doesn't, even though I know you're saying I want my pencil and I'm going to start creating. So again, this is what it did. It motivated somebody to be creative. Then we met our goal today too, like I just think using your creativity, finding a space for it is so powerful. And whether you use a therapist to help an art therapist to help you navigate it, or use your creativity, but it's just all, it really can be helpful and a powerful tool to, um, for people not
Unlock.
to be.
Yeah, Jamie and I have probably talked about this for decades. Jamie
Yeah.
has a couple paintings, a series of paintings about a boy drawing, and you see the expression from emanating from his brain, kind of thing, and it becomes part of the painting. And I can't explain it other than the fact that this painting helps me think, wow, the act of creating, someone creating in a painting, and it's multi-leveler at that point. And we always talk about kind of like the mindset of what's coming out, what's up here now coming out physically. And I think, and you mentioned it, like there's art therapy, there's music, there's all these different kind of modalities you use. I know we're highlighting today art therapy, and I think we've honed in on maybe some of the benefits, like helping someone process and put out. What might be some of the challenges right now? Like, why is there resistance to it? Is it because it's time consuming, or is it because less people are trained in it? Maybe.
People definitely, you need to be able to find the time to help you, find the benefits of any therapy. And we're in a society that's running and going and not stopping. I mean, maybe someone's going to be listening to this podcast on their way someplace else. I don't, but I mean, I think finding time to take care of ourselves is the biggest struggle most people have. You have to find time to work out. I say you have to have the three, you have to take care of your mind, you have to take care of your body, and you have to take care of your finances. And you take care of all three of those, and you should be in somewhat of a, just work towards them, be mindful of them. I think everybody can find time. It's just, you have to create it. And, it's the biggest gift we have, and it's the thing that we can't get back. And it's the time is the most important, cherished part of it all, right? I just think that, you know, if someone's resistant to art therapy, then do another kind of therapy. I don't really care if you do. I just think that we should all work on our mental health so that we can live together and navigate problems together. Because I think that there's just seems to be a lot of community issues, more so than ever, and we also are connected to our community so much more. We're connected globally so much more. So we need to kind of work harder at it. I I think just finding whatever works for you, whether, you're feeling not good and that music's going to pick you up, if you need to find a music therapist and teach you about, drumming and how it's going to get out whatever you need to get out. I'm not a music therapist, just so, but I'm just saying each one of the modalities might have whatever it is that you need for yourself. And I think that each one of those modalities can also teach you a tremendous amount about yourself and what you do with that information. It's your choice. Do you put it on your tool belt? Do you throw it out the window because you find it annoying? Or do you, focus on, find a new mantra, or focus on something that you need to focus on when you're having an anxiety attack and get you through the rest of your day because you've got a new tool.
Do you ever get into like breaking down like symbolism in someone's art, like in terms of like how and using that to help them? Like I remember like the house tree person test,
Absolutely. We have projective assessments that we utilize all the time. We are constantly, I'm constantly working within a metaphor of what is happening. And also we're creating new neural pathways for the work that we're doing so that, if someone has a problem, I have a lot of little metaphor stories that I use where we, try to undo or find a new path, find a new journey. And we're constantly trying to create that within and providing support. There's all these different pieces that art therapy does for people. But I think just using art can be so powerful, but whatever you use, it works. It really works. It's like crazy, but it really works. If you go to an art therapist, you're going to be surprised. It really works.
Did you ever have like an example where you felt like you were seeing something in someone's art, and then you were realizing, oh, this thing happened to them and they weren't able to express it? Or I think there might be a relationship problem like with someone in their life because of what they're drawing or anything like that?
100%. And I get calls all the time, oh, we've got this artwork we think that there's a situation. I know,
and then you
working in a situation. Certainly our artwork can be very telling. And we have symbolism that we believe using our projective assessments and the evidence-based work where we think, if something's on a certain side of the page, it might mean the past or the future or the present. And we have a whole tools to assess those situations. And I do think sometimes we can use what we know for what I know as a clinician to help that client. For example, I was working with a teenager who was she was in the hospital with me, and she was going in for surgery, and it was her about 8th surgery. It was for a very serious surgery. She didn't want to go. She was brave all the other times. I was with her the other times. This time she kept saying, help me to tell my mom this is the time. And so she created this balloon on the images of a sky and the balloon going off into the future. And she used the metaphor of this balloon to kind of say goodbye to her family. And we brought the family in and we talked about it. And she said her goodbyes. She said, I'm going to be on this balloon and I'm going to a great place. So she wanted to make her mom feel that she was going to be okay. And we did it in a story and we did it with the artwork. And it was so powerful and so much easier for her to have that conversation.
That's really powerful. Are there any sort of like telltale, like symbolic, like I remember reading that, Vincent van Gogh used yellow because he was suicidal or because he was manic, but then other people say, well, yellow is happiness. And, so you get these sometimes, like, are there any like, sort of tried and true symbolic, kind of meanings to colors or objects, or like you said, placement on a page? Is there anything that automatically tells you something?
I think there is. I think you can tell a lot, but I also, no matter what, I wouldn't say anything definitively. Could possibly indicate, might say, I would never say that this is what this means for that person because I don't know if unless I'm working with them and then I have all
Yeah,
that insight, but I
kind
would
of unbox it in a way,
yeah,
right?
anything's
Kind of
possible. And
unbox.
sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. I mean, we know that, right? We're going back. We use theories. We use theories to make sure we follow, all, it's not just hey, let's pick a something out of a hat, but, it just depends on really what that means for that person. Part of it is. So that's where we are with it.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna wrap us up here. Unless if Peter, if you have another question, or if Susan, you have something that you want to make sure our listeners and viewers know. Anything?
I mean, I'm like so honored that you asked me to be here. I'm floored. And I really just hope that spreading the awareness and the benefits of seeking out art therapy is just, it could be so powerful and it's a wonderful tool. And I hope that we just keep telling people there are all these different things that you can do to help yourself. So I hope that
Susan, I'm going to
that's
tell you right
it.
now, this has been inspiring even just for us.
Yeah.
And Jamie really started this podcast with a focus on like help looking at mental health and social justice and helping spread awareness about things. And I think hopefully we've done that. You've done that today, spreading the benefits of art therapy as a modality in any kind of therapy, and B, just in terms of everyone having a healthier mindset in being able to express themselves, maybe through art. Maybe it's even just doodling or drawing stick figures. This is very, very, very great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, the privilege was ours, Susan. There was 1,000 things we could have talked to you about. You're involved in so many things. It's really impressive. All right. Well, Susan, thank you very much. And everybody, thanks for listening and watching. And we will see you next time.